Hello and welcome all together to today's webinar, as usually hosted by the Open Telecom Cloud Community Portal. Today we have the topic Unlock the Full Potential of OTC Identity Management with OTC-Auth as a topic with us. And as speaker today we have Victor Getz from IITS. We also have Jesse, also from IITS Consulting. And from OTC part, we have Tino Fenle as product manager for the identity management service. On top, we also have Uli. He will start in a few seconds with some intro words also from his side. You may already know him from the Uli's hands-on training in the community. With this, I would lead over at first to Uli.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. To all of the members in the community, welcome to our session today, also from my side. It's a long time ago we're starting with the first plannings and discussions for this session. It was already in the middle of November. And today we do something new. So I'm really happy to have to present to organize for you the first shared session we had in our community. Stefan mentioned already we had Tino from our product managers team who present us the product by himself and tell us a little bit about identity and access management. And Victor and Jesse from IITS, I would say our partner, of course, also a customer and, well, friends of Open Telecom Cloud and the community. They show us the practical use in daily life and even introduce their new open source tool, OTC-Auth, to us. So thank you guys that you make it happen. So unlock the full potential of Open Telecom Cloud, guys. Tino, thank you.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. Also, good morning again from me. Just a few words about us and what we are talking today about. So my name is Tino Fenle, as I was already introduced. I'm the product manager for security services on Open Telecom Cloud. And today I will give you the introduction and the basics of Identity Federation and OpenID Connect for identity and access management on the Open Telecom Cloud.
My name is Victor Getz. I'm CTO and founder at IITS Consulting, made several talks already, but today I will focus on stripping down the complex RBAC system with OIDC and the full chain to make a simple story, and my part will be to make it very easy to you so you can replay it. And then I brought today with me Jesse.
Hi everyone, I'm Jesse, and I'm a software developer with IITS Consulting. Mostly I am developing backends with Kotlin and Spring Boot, but Victor told me that there is this tool that needs to be developed in Go. I was like, yes, let's do this. So I had a deep dive into Go and then developed the OTC-Auth CLI application that I'll be introducing later on in the talk, that show you how to make your life as a DevOps engineer easier. Now I'll circle back to Tino, who's going to start with the presentation of the IAM.
Great, thank you. So let's begin first of all with the basics to give you context about what we're actually talking about. So let me quickly show you the basis of what's coming next. And this is the Identity and Access Management Service, IAM. And IAM is the core service for permission management and manages who can access what. And so who can access what at which condition. Basically, the who are the users, most likely in groups. The access is managed via access policies, giving access to resources like virtual machines or buckets at specific conditions, like, for example, MFA, so multi-factor authentication, or even at a specific time frame. Having said that, with IAM, you can protect your resources with fine-grained access controls. You can delegate access also to other OTC accounts or federated systems, and all that as an integrated service free of charge. As you can see, I've marked federated identity authentication, as this will be the focus of the topic of today. On this picture, you can see the full spectrum of IAM service with the different types of users and how they fit in the big picture of the service. But today we focus on federation, identity conversion rules, groups, and how they can access the resources with federation. So federation, or better said, identity federation means linking a single identity across multiple identity management systems. So if you ask, what does it exactly mean? So let me give you an example. So imagine you have 4 different services or applications. As you can see here, all applications have their own local user. So they are created and managed in the database of each application. In this scenario, so if you would like to access all applications, of course, you would need to create the user 4 times in each application. The same goes, of course, with authorization, and not to forget with deletion or revocation of the user right. With Identity Federation, you link your identity management system of the application together. In this view, all 4 applications are federated with a central IAM system. So thanks to this federation, the federated user can be easily authorized in the connected applications as they all trust the same central IAM. So next is, you may ask how this exactly works. For that one, we have 3 important key players in this concept, starting, of course, with the user. So the user wants to access the application. On the left side, you see the service provider, or also called relying party, which is providing the actual service the user wants to access. Therefore, the user sends the request to the service provider. As the service provider has set up on a trust relationship, so a federation with a so-called identity provider, it trusts him. So as you can see, by the name, the service provider provides the services and the identity provider provides the identities. As a next step, the user needs to authenticate himself. Usually he is then forwarded to the identity provider for the authentication. After the successful authentication with the identity provider, usually then the user is forwarded back again to the service provider and then is granted access to the requested service. The federation itself brings a lot of benefits with it. So first of all, it enhances the security because it reduces the number of usernames and passwords you need to remember. So you have just one set of credentials for multiple applications. If the setup supports single sign-on, it also reduces the amount of login itself. So ideally, you are already logged in without providing credentials at all. Secondly, also, it enhances the user experience itself because, like I said, you have the same credentials for different applications, or you're logged in directly without any effort to search for your password with single sign-on. And lastly, of course, it reduces the administrative effort for creation, maintenance, and deletion of users, and of course, the permission of the users. For setting up the Identity Federation, there are 2 major protocols which are used. This is the Security Assertion Markup Language called SAML or OpenID Connect, OIDC. As you will see later, Open Telecom Cloud Identity and Access Management Service supports both. In the table, you will see some differences between both protocols. I don't want to go into details for each of it. So the summary in a short version is with SAML. This is mostly used in enterprise applications and let's say legacy applications. And OpenID Connect is the more current protocol and more suited for consumer web applications, but also for mobile applications. If you want to set up Identity Federation, so an identity provider on OTC, you can also easily directly create one in the IAM menu. So if you select Identity Provider, you can easily create one with either SAML or OpenID Connect as a protocol. As the next step, I want to show you an example because I said it's easy to be done. So I also have planned a short demo where I quickly show an example. So basically, you may remember the slides I showed a few seconds ago. What we now want to have as a target architecture is that OTC will act as a service provider, and we use a tool called Keycloak, which will serve as our identity provider. So Keycloak is an open source identity and access management solution, used as an example here, but you can use any tool that supports SAML or OpenID Connect. So what I now will do is I switch to my browser to set up the connection. What we firstly need to do is log in our identity provider. In this case, like I said, it's Keycloak. So I will quickly log in. Now that I'm logged in, I want to create a client in Keycloak. I just give it a client ID, so I name a unique name. I need to remember to match up later with OpenID Connect on OTC side. So I will just use OTC community test and create it. Once it's created, I need to enable implicit flow for OpenID Connect redirection. And also I need to provide a valid redirect URL. So this one is basically the URL where you are forwarded once the login was successful. This one is from the OTC side, which is also part of our documentation in the Help Center. So I paste that link here, and of course I need to save my settings. Lastly, what I will do, I will use all available scopes for the identity conversion rules to be used. Now I've added them, so they are also available. Basically, this is already the part which is necessary from Keycloak side. What we now do is set up the second part, which is on Open Telecom Cloud. So now I log into my console. Then I open Identity and Access Management, go to Identity Provider, and create a new one. I also call it OTC Community Test. Of course, I select then OpenID Connect. Now it has been created. I need to enter the setup details. Here we leave it as management console access that I can use the OTC console. What I now need to provide is the identity provider URL. That is basically information which you can get from the documentation from Keycloak based on your setup on your realm. So I will just paste it here. The client ID is basically the same which you pasted here for the client on Keycloak. So I will use the same to match it. As the next one, you also need the authorization endpoint, which you also get from the documentation from Keycloak. Lastly, you need the signing key for the secure communication. That one you also get from Keycloak again, from this URL for the certificates from OpenID Connect. So that one I will also copy and paste in the signing key. Basically, that's it for the basic connection. What we also want to do is to work with identity conversion rules. Identity conversion rules basically map parameters, in this case called scopes, to map remote scopes. So yeah, variables coming from Keycloak to local ones in OTC. What we have as a default one is just from anytime anything from remote is basically ignored. And what we have for local is the user, and the username is Federation user. So independent from what your actual username is coming from the identity provider, you are always called Federation user. And that's not what we want to have. So we adapted a bit and paste a new one. So this new one is now taking 3 variables from Keycloak. So it's the given name, the family name, and the group membership. And what it does is basically it maps it to the local attributes. So we have here the username with the variable 0 and 1. So it always starts with 0, and that is 1. So when you log in, you expect to have the given name, then a space, and then the family name. For the group, anybody who is part of the group OTC admin on Keycloak side will be put into the admin group on OTC side. So we validate it and it's successful. So we can click on OK and save it. Basically, now we have already set up the identity provider. When you now go to the identity provider itself, you get the login link. That's the most important one you need, because that is the way of accessing now OTC as a service provider. So to test it out, I will copy it and I will open a private window because I'm already logged in. So the expected behavior is when I want now to access OTC, it trusts Keycloak and it is forwarding me to Keycloak for logging in. So I open that one and now I'm forwarded. Again, I'm logging in. And what is now expected is that because they trust each other, when I log into Keycloak and it's successfully, I'm forwarded to OTC, to the console, and I'm logged in. And as a second one, because we changed the rules, you see also my name here on the top right changed to first name, space, and last name. And with that one, we have successfully created an identity provider quite quick on the GUI side. And that completes my part for the, let's say, basics on GUI side. And I will hand over to Victor for the next part of his presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. That was really impressive. You made it look like very, very easy, and I think like everybody who watched it can replay it also in his cluster. It's really amazing, and the dream is to automate everything, to have just a single sign-on for all the tools and everything what you want to have. My part is to make the little bit introduction how to come to this part. So basically where you have the single sign-on everything. And because we developed the OTC-Auth tool, and the OTC-Auth tool is the open source CLI for authorization with the Open Telecom Cloud. But before that, I wanted to also to catch up with the people who are not so familiar with the full process and maybe starting new refresh in the Open Telecom Cloud. So basically what I would like to do with you is we play a little bit of story. So basically we play like the normal process or the normal flow which a company takes till it gets to this part where they have role-based access and control about everything, and they have single sign-on into every tool. So I put a lot of effort in thinking, so how can I make so much technology, so much complexity? How can I make it easy? And I thought we do it just based on the story. So we have an example situation. We have an imaginary company, which is called Acme. It hosts the infrastructure on OTC and has the CloudOps admin. This is like the basics. It's every time like you have the CloudOps admin has full access, and he builds up or he or she builds up the infrastructure. And this looks like this one. So basically, the admin can log into the IAM system of OTC, and it has full control over Open Telecom Cloud. I will focus a little bit more on Kubernetes in this part because it's a little bit more complicated than the other things, which is really cool because we have then covered the whole area. First, let's create this basic scenario. So admin logs into IAM and has some resources there. So what is the first step what we need to do is create CCE in the basic setup. So for this one, I created the open source project. It's under our IITS Consulting Friday talk. And you can see here there are 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. And these 3 steps we will perform. And then we have the exactly same stuff that Tino showed us. So I checked out this project, this project here. And you see I'm using the terminal here. I'm using Terraform because Terraform really describes what we are doing. And I can also do all the things which I'm showing now. It will take like 10, 12 minutes. Everything that I'm showing now can also be done via the user interface, but I would like rather to choose Terraform and Infrastructure-as-Code so you can really see what we need. And so it's a little bit easier to understand what we are doing here. So what do we have here? We have, if somebody watched my previous talk, we have here this main TF. This main TF is the red line through our infrastructure. We have here virtual private cloud. We have here some internet access. We have here Kubernetes. So in OTC, it's called CCE. Here we use also our other open source tool, which is called Project Factory from Terraform. It's a very basic setup with autoscaler, Kubernetes. And we have here some bucket where we throw some secrets inside there, which is encrypted. So very important also to say is here is line number 39. So basically the authentication mode is RBAC, which is very necessary. Otherwise, the RBAC will not work on CCE. And yeah, to create this one, you need just to go in Terraform init and Terraform apply. For sure, you need a little bit of environment variables, but you can look them up in my other talks. It takes like 2 minutes. I did it already because booting up the nodes will take 2-3 minutes, and this is not the important stuff for today because I talked about it already several times, and I want to save a little bit of time. So basically, here was the admin. He deployed some stuff in the OTC, and then we are done. But now comes the fun part. There's this admin. He has full control over everything. But the company develops more. So the company grows larger, they have dedicated development teams, and the first new developer, which is dedicated only for developing some applications, is Sophia Smith. She joins the company as a developer and needs to have read-only access to OTC resources. So now we have a problem that we have the admin who has a full control about everything, but for Sophia, we need to have a dedicated access with only read-only access to one specific project inside the OTC. And the question is, how does the flow look like now? So she should log in the same way that the admin does through the IAM system, and then she should be able to control the Kubernetes and read there the stuff and also maybe access some information based on the project. So what do we need to do to achieve this one? So basically we focus only on the IAM system now. In the IAM system, we will create a user, a group, a role, and the role assignment. That's the thing which we need to do. And this one we do now live. So what I'm doing here, I'm switching to the second folder, which is called OTC-Auth. Here you see we're using also Terraform. It has some main TF. And let's go through this red line. Let's read what I want to do. So basically, Sophia Smith joined the company. So I need a new Open Telecom Cloud identity user, which is called Sophia Smith. I need also some group. So basically, I want the roles to be grouped in one group. And I have one role, and this role has this permission. So you can see here, it has some CCE get and list permission, but it has no create permission. That means that she is not allowed to create any resources, but to see the resources inside one specific project. So what is else also here? We need to bind the role to the group. And also we need then later on Sophia Smith that she's part of this new group which we created. Okay, let's do this one. So I say Terraform apply. Says want to add 5 resources. What I did here, you can see in the variables that I have here the Sophia Smith password. I injected it over environment variables. This is a standard approach from Terraform. So basically, I have one environment variable which I sourced up front, and this one gives me then the correct password for Sophia, which I will not expose because of security reasons. You can see here that we have one export. So basically, it exports us the group ID. And this is the group ID which Sophia belongs to. Because the question is now, okay, we have now in the IAM, we created the user, we created the group, we created the roles and permissions. But how can I combine this with my Kubernetes cluster? How does our Kubernetes cluster know what kind of IAM permissions are in the system in OTC? And this is pretty simple, because what we prepared here is cluster role binding. You can see here's the Kubernetes subfolder, and here's the cluster role binding. And it works very smooth and easy in OTC, because the only thing what you need to do is you need to create a cluster role. In this case, it's a view role. It's a standard role in Kubernetes, so you have only view access. So basically, I'm binding this cluster role to my group inside the OTC IAM. And how can it be done? It's really easy. You just need to change here this ID. So basically, you set here the ID of the group, which I now freshly created, and then it connects the Kubernetes cluster with the IAM system. And so basically, Sophia has this view role inside Kubernetes if she belongs to this group inside IAM. Okay, let's do this one. So I will do the following. I need first to access the cluster from step 1. As an admin, I have it inside my example env, which I will source very quickly. So if you saw, this was very quick, because this is our OTC-Auth tool, which Jose will show you later. And now let's look. Yeah, I'm on the Auth demo dev cluster, which means I'm the admin user now, and I can apply this cluster role binding. Because if I would now use the kube config from Sophia Smith, for sure I could not apply it, because as a default, I have no rules at all. So kube control apply Auth demo. And if you're applying this one with Sophia Smith, at least we should be able to see pods, we should see some deployments, and all the things which are necessary. Okay. Nice. So basically, I could show you also over the UI how it's done, but I don't want to log in and all the stuff, because our company, our imaginary company, Acme, changed again, and now we need to implement a single sign-on. So let's switch back to the slides. We created user groups and everything inside IAM, but the company evolves further. So there comes a new regulation that the Acme company requires single sign-on through the central identity management system. So basically, single sign-on for all the tools, and also for our OTC cloud, we need to have then single sign-on, and this is exactly the same stuff as Tino did. So basically, we need to implement this one. So you can use also Active Directory or whatever you would like. So how does the process look like now? You can see there's a new block here, the key cloak system. So basically, our users go to the key cloak system, then they use Active Directory or whatever single sign-on mechanism you would like to have. And then you connect the key cloak system with the IAM system over OIDC. It can be also Okta or something else, doesn't need to be key cloak. But then it's connected, and the groups are bound based on the mapping, which also Tino did. And then we have the right permissions inside our Kubernetes cluster and also in the IAM system based on the key cloak groups which the users are then getting. So admin gets the full access, Sophia Smith only gets the read-only access. Okay, then let's see how can we do this thing? How can we implement this flow? First, what we need to do, we need to adjust the mapping inside OTC. And that's what I will do now. So I will log in as admin. You can see here, I just reused the stuff as Tino did. So basically, Tino implemented already the full connection between the key clock and the OTC, and I'm reusing this thing to log in as an administrator. So I'm logging in here, and then I'm typing here IAM. And you can see here, I used the exactly stuff as Tino, but I made just a copy. So basically I did it on my side because he's working on a different cloud. But so I just followed the steps like he did. And you can see here is the OTC-Auth Friday OpenID connection. And if I click on view, then we need to add this other role mapping. And I did it here already. So basically this is the first part, which Tino also did. So that means the OTC admin is then the part of the admin inside OTC. So on top is the group name of the key clock system. On the bottom is the one in OTC IAM. And the same stuff I did also now for Sophia, or for all developers, not only for Sophia, but for all developers. So basically, if you're inside Keycloak, part of the developer group, you're also part of the Auth demo CCE viewer. And if you took a little bit care, then you see that this Auth demo CCE viewer is the one which we created in step 2. And you can see here, this is the part here. Auth demo CCE viewer. So basically, you want to connect the developer group from Keycloak to the Auth demo CCE viewer from our IAM system. Yeah, but the question is, how does this developer group comes into Keycloak? How can I implement and configure Keycloak? So I will have a user inside Keycloak, and I will also have a developer group inside Keycloak. How can I do this? And this is the part which we do now, the last part, and this is the step 3. Add Sophia to Keycloak and assign a group, and that's what we will do now. So basically, I'm switching here out of the Kubernetes. I'm switching into the search folder, which is called Keycloak. Let's take a look at what is done here. You can see here the username is Sophia Smith. Here we have a Keycloak user with Terraform. You can see also we set here a password, an initial password. We create here a new Keycloak group, which is called developer. And then we map this Sophia Smith inside Keycloak, not in the OTC IAM system, but inside Keycloak, we map Sophia Smith to the developer group. Okay, just let's Terraform apply. Now we added Sophia Smith also to our Keycloak system because we configured Keycloak over Terraform. Cool, then we have done this part. And now it's very interesting to check this one out, if it works. Yeah, if you can log in now over Keycloak and if you have the right permissions. So how can we do this one? If you go back to the configuration, which I did for the single sign-on, you have this login link, and Tino showed it already, so I will copy this one. I will add this one. Then, oh, I need incognito mode for sure, because I'm logged in still as admin. So I switch over here. And then we need the password. And then the username was sophia.smith. The password was this one. And if you log in now, we should have the access for our user, which is called Sophia. Let's take a look. She can only see the Auth demo project because there's multiple projects. And let's see if she can create something. No, we don't have the permission for that, which is very awesome because that's what we want to have. Let's try if she can create a bucket. No, also no permission. But she should be able to see the Cloud Container Engine, the Kubernetes cluster, and she should be able to download kubectl config. So basically, she can see the cluster, which is really cool. Let's download kubectl config. Now, please pay attention because this is the step which normally users do and which also our OTC-Auth tool solves a problem. So basically, I need to click here. I need to click here to download the config. And then I say 1 day valid, and I click here to download. And then I get the Kubernetes config. So how can I access the cluster now? What I need to do, I need to adjust my kubeconfig file manually, locally. So the content which was downloaded, I paste it into kube.config. You can see it here. I nano this kubeconfig, and now I need to see kubecontrol get pods. Get pods -a. You can see I'm able to log in into the cluster and can see some stuff. So the question is now, can I create something? Let's try this one out. Kubecontrol run minus image nginx latest nginx. This one should be fine. And you see here the user is forbidden to do that. And this is really awesome because this is exactly what we want to have. The user cannot create some resources, it can only list, but it cannot create some resources. So this is really, really cool. Okay, let's go back to our slides. We implemented the full change. We added Sophia to the Keyclose system. We can log in. We made from zero, we started, and then we went to the full chain. And the question is now, is this authentication flow really what you want to have? Does it have, like, is really optimized? Is it really automated? Or can we maybe optimize some things? If you pay really attention, you saw that there are some flaws in the current process. And this is the flaws which OTC-Auth tool solves. So basically, to getting a personalized kubeconfig based on your role-based access, you need to go to the UI and you need to download it. And so you need to click here and make multiple clicks and log in to get your Kubernetes config, which is very annoying. And also, you get a very general kubeconfig. That means that if you download it, the name is every time user, even when you are Sophia Smith, and also the current context is every time external. So basically, if you're working on multiple clusters, then every time there it stands external, or if you maybe impersonate as a user, that stands every time name user. You're not knowing which kind of Kubernetes you're currently using, and you're also not knowing which kind of user you're currently on. So basically, which kind of permissions you're testing. The third thing is, it's hard to switch or to add new kube context. So basically, if you have multiple stages, DevQI prod, or maybe multiple tenants, then you need to log in every time over the UI. You navigate to the cluster, download the kube config, and merge kube config with the existing one. What does it mean, merge new config with the existing one? This brings us to the first flaw. You need to manually merge them. So basically, you create different contexts for your Kubernetes so you can switch very easily. But before you're able to do that, you need to change the name, you need to change the user, and then you manually copy paste this both configuration into one single kubeconfig file, which I also did to access the cluster. The fifth point is the generation of RKS key is not possible. So basically, the access key and secret key you need for access maybe something in the bucket or something like that, in OBS. And currently, in my knowledge, in EUDE and EUNL, it's not possible to get a personalized RKS key, but it's possible in the Swiss Cloud. In Swiss Cloud, it's possible, but in my knowledge, it's not possible at the moment in EUD and EUNL, but I think it will come after some time, but at the moment, it's not possible. And so it's a little bit of limitations, what we can do. And last but not least, the CI/CD integration is not easy. So, because imagine we have a GitLab running now, how can we get the kubeconfig file? So if you're not using GitOps. So basically, I need to create a CI/CD user first, either in Keycloak or in the OTC-IAM system. I need to log in over the UI. I need to navigate to the cluster. I need to download the kubeconfig with a long lifetime, which is a huge security issue, because if I have, for example, half of a year and somebody steals my kubeconfig, he has access to the cluster, which is really bad, because you want to have like a very limited lifetime, maybe, I don't know, a day or maybe an hour or something like that. And because if you do 1 week, you need to change every week the kubeconfig, which is also too much overhead. Then you have this maybe half-year long lifetime kubeconfig. You put it into the kubeconfig, for example, into Vault or some other secret mechanism, and then you need to pull this kubeconfig from Vault during run. So basically you need also a vault image or something like that to be able to access it. So you need a pre-step every time. This has really some way for optimization and some possibilities for optimization. And that's where our OTC-Auth tool comes in. And the OTC-Auth tool is something which Gisele developed. And that's why I would like that Gisele will present us today the tool.
Thank you, Victor. So it's time that we address these weak spots that we're talking about. Let's talk about OTC-Auth. So OTC-Auth is the command line tool that we designed to help make our DevOps engineers' lives easier. With it, you can manage logins, unscope tokens, scope tokens for different tasks, and get resources that you need. All of that we're leveraging from the role-based access control that Victor and Tino already presented before. The cool thing is that we support all of the logins IAM directly with the ODC or using SAML or OIDC. The best thing about it, it's open source, so you can download it over GitHub. You can participate to maybe show some issues or participate in the discussions with us. So in this demo, I'm going to go over installation and everything. So let's get over to GitHub. And as you can see, the tool is very well documented. We have here like all of the commands I'll be showing you today. And there's also a video that shows how to implement that in your daily life, in your development. And you can see here all like resources, passing and everything. If you head to the releases page, you will see that it supports all the major platforms, all the major OSs. Since I'm on Mac, I'm going to download it for Darwin. Exactly. I'm going to show that in my Finder and unpack it. And once I unpack it, the installation is really easy. I will have like to sudo that into OTC-Auth, into my user local bin. And I'll give here my password. Yes, and that's it. And if I do OTC-Auth -- help, you'll see that it's already installed and it's already ready to go. And you already see the commands that shows version, login, projects, CCE. We're going to be talking about them. I'm going to go over and expand on Victor's story. So let's say we're Sophia Smith and we want to log in. And at this point, we have the OTC login. So we have to log in directly over IAM. And just a quick note, on my slides, you see here that the full verbose commands, and I also like put a print screen of the help commands that you can always go to OTC login IAM -- help and see all of the arguments that you can pass. For instance, if you check on the slide, you can use multi-factor authentication. There is support for it already built in, and you just have to pass then 2 arguments: OS user domain ID and TOTP. With that, you will be good to go. So we're going to try and log in with Sophia Smith. As you can see, we have a security issue right off the bat because the verbose command expects you to have OS password, right, to pass the OS password argument, and we don't want to do that. I don't want to show the password here on the screen. So if you look also closely to the help command, you will see that most all of the arguments have environment variables, and I've already set it up before. So we will go to my terminal here. And just to prove that to you, I'm going to echo the OS username. So see that Sophia Smith is already configured. All right, so let's go and OTC-Auth login with an IAM. And I don't need to give anything else. And that we get an unscoped token for our user Sophia. But also, I don't really want to do that because like one of the reasons that we're doing this is to show the integration with OIDC and SAML. So basically, we'll be focusing on OIDC here. So I'm going to use the remove login to remove her from the cloud. So OTC-Auth login, remove, and usually I would have to pass here the OS domain name, but we don't need it. We don't need that. I just wanted to show you that I can log in with the IAM, right, directly on the OTC cloud. And now we're going to actually what we want to show, what we want to focus on, that is the login with the OIDC. And as you can see, they're very verbose commands that we're not going to be using again. So these environment variables make your life really, really much easier. But you can also log in with this if you want, right? So let's try to log in with the OIDC. That is really easy when I go OTC-Auth, login, IDP, OIDC. It is very important that you have the IDP name, the IDP URL, and the client ID. All of those we talked already about. The client secret, it's optional, but you can configure that on your Keycloak or on your identity provider. All right, so let's fire that out. It will ask me which browser I want to use. I'm using Brave here. We can log in as Sophia Smith. I'm using here KeyPass, so I also don't have to show their password. And here again, if there is multi-factor authentication configured on Keycloak, you don't have to worry about it anymore, because basically Keycloak is going to take care of multi-factor authentication for you. When you log in, you see the success page, and now you can close this window. I can just go back here to terminal, and you see I was also able to retrieve an unscoped token for Sophia using that. What else can we do? We can list the projects. We already saw that Sophia has access to one project only, and the command for that is OTC projects list. And why do we want to list the projects? Because ultimately we want to get a list of clusters. And with the project and the clusters, we're going to be able to get that kubeconfig that we were talking about. If I go here and say OTC Auth CCE list, yeah, it's going to list all the clusters for the project here, and the auth demo dev is the cluster that we're looking for, right? That we already saw in the previous part. Okay, so we're going to get the kubeconfig that we're talking about, and we're going to use for that the command cc get kubeconfig. This is OTC Auth CCE get kubeconfig, and this is just before I fire that command, I want to talk about Victor had to merge that file manually, right? And this is where OTC-Auth also shines, because it will get the config, the kubeconfig from you, from the OTC cloud. It will download and it will merge with your existing kubeconfig, right? So exactly, super fast, as you can see. If I go here and get the kubeconfig to show that the username is Sophia Smith, and the current context is the demo auth that we're talking about. So we get a customized, personalized kubeconfig instead of like a general one like we were talking about before. Also here, I should be able to get pods as Sophia, right? And that's exactly what we wanted. Other than that, there's the access and secret key pair that Victor was talking about that is at the moment only available on the Swiss cloud. And this is really, really easy to get. If we do ls with the grep, but I want anything that ends with ak, sk, env, I don't find anything, right? But as soon as I get I run the access token create command, and then we will see that. So OTC auth access token create. Then it downloads the file for me, and you see there is an AKSKM file here now. So let's try and list that. And then you see that the file was created now, 1054. So for some of these commands, when you get the cluster, for example, you're already using a scoped token, and for some of the commands you have used the unscoped token, and the scoped token gives you that role-based access control that you want to have. What else do we have? We have support for multiple tenants. It works great with your env. So Victor, as he was presenting, he also said like, oh, yeah, now I changed directories and something ran. If you saw that, it was like OTC-Auth because he has their env installed. And whenever our engineers change from one tenant to the other, it's automatically like you log into another tenant and you get the access control for that tenant. So it's very very fine granular. And what is coming up is to generate an OpenStack config file. That is coming up real soon. And as you can see, if we go back to our Git repository and go down here, there is a list of all environment variables that we use. And all the variables that start with OS, they're already in line with the OpenStack. That's why the prefix with OS. You can use that with clouds that support OpenStack as well as the Telecom Cloud, as you can see. All right. I still have like some of the links here, source code for the example, the link to the GitHub OTC-Auth and the Terraform project factory. And that's it from me.
So, this was more or less the content part of our webinar. So for this, thank you, and now I will open the Q&A session. I already have one question in the chat, and this is it possible to do the OpenID Connect authorization without involving a web browser? For example, when you use terminal-only systems.
So you have to connect somehow to your identity provider. That's how Keycloak works. You usually have a link to the IDP. So that's how we implemented it. Yeah.
I will create the issue there, a question inside GitLab, and then we take a look at that and we will post it. Because if I remember correctly, we implemented it, or like GC implemented that the client secret can be provided, but I think the web browser flow is still there. So, but it's very easy to change that. And also keep in mind, this OTC-Auth tool is maybe like 2 months old or something. That's really fresh because the OIDC is just implemented, I don't know, 3-4 months ago or something like that. So we went very fast to implement this full change because we needed to have it for our clients. Please just open an issue there if you have some feature requests. We will change that, and we are also very happy if you make some pull requests. Definitely, I got 2 points already: the SAML MFA, and also then the client secret providing for most probably for GitLab Runner or something like that.
Yes, exactly. SAML MFA for SAML is right now not possible, but it will be possible in the future.
Yeah. There's also a question how it's really supposed to help in the CI/CD jobs if the user input is still required. It currently helps only in the IAM process. So basically, you can provide a username, password, and then you get your kubectl config based on the IAM. So basically, we have 3 options. We have implement everything: IAM, SAML, and OIDC. But if you implement the client secret feature also, you can use the OIDC with the client secret also without the web. And yeah, so basically currently only IAM. So you type in OTC-Auth login, a username, password, then OTC-Auth get kubectl config, and then you have your kube config. So it's 2 commands which you need to perform at the moment through the IAM system. If you want to go over OTC, we need this one feature with the client secret.
One more, and the last question at the moment I see in the chat is if there is a list of specific tools which are supported with the OTC-Auth, or if all tools which support SAML and OpenID Connect are out of the box kind of usable.
Yeah, that works completely on the OIDC protocol, so it doesn't matter what you use for OIDC or SAML. It should work with everything. That's why I said you can use Keycloak or Okta or something else. It doesn't matter.
So, as the slide already said, thank you a lot for joining today's webinar. We had a really big round here. Thank you a lot, Victor, Jesse, Tino, and also Uli for the nice webinar. And see you on the next webinar, last Friday of the month, as usually again here, same round, same time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.